Thank you, Penny. I wrote that because I had in my file from Sherry Madaw. I had to introduce her at one of the stick curling banquets, and anyways, here was all her layout. I thought that's a good idea, you know. It tells the person introducing you that help them what to say. Anyways, how many curlers are here? How many people, I should say, have curled? That takes in more. Yeah. Good. Good. Anyways, the thing is about curling. Now, there's 4 countries that claim that they have the rights to starting of curling: Scotland, Netherlands, Iceland, and Bavarians. And who do you think? Scotland, of course. And because there was little evidence of any real similarity in these other countries, what they were playing to the game curling that we have now. And so curling appeared, I'll give you some 1500, 1600, 1700, 1800, what do you think? Curling appeared as early as 1500. And there was a stone unearthed in Scotland, a cutting stone, and it was dated 1511. So it goes a long ways back. Curling, get my 10-1 out to talk. There we are. Curling actually actually just prior to that though, what was interesting was in 1737 was the first book of rules written, and there was penalties in the book for gambling, swearing, and non-attendance. So that was the first book of rules written about curling. Curling actually came to Canada in 1759, and it came with the 78th Highland Regiment to Quebec City. And how they got started in 1759, they had the foundry melt down cannonballs and turn them into curling stones. So that's the earliest date. And what was kind of interesting was I didn't realize that until we were there in Quebec City curling there at the end of January in the International Bonspiel. Anyways, the fact that they made mention of this, that curling actually started in Canada right there in Quebec. And what was interesting too, we were piped and drummed into the ballroom of the Chateau Frontenac by the 78th Highlanders pipe band, and it was quite something to see them in their tams, which is the same as this, but their kilts, and that was a little different than our local pipe band. Anyways, I can take that off. Now, curling came to Ontario, and it's always been disputed, and everybody likes to claim that they're the first. But anyways, in Ontario, in 1820, Kingston formed the first curling club in Ontario. And in 1834, the Fergus Curling Club started, and it was the oldest continually running curling club in Ontario, is how they put it. So, meaning that that there must have been a break in Kingston, and a lot of events did have breaks during the war years and that. And I know our Agricultural Society Great North Exhibition is continually running, where a lot of the fall fairs did have a break during the war years and that. So, so anyways, that brings us up to our own club. In 1881, the Collingwood Curling Club began its association with the Ontario Curling Association. The first president was George Watson, while other early devotees of the game included J. Wright, W. Toner, C. Stevens, W. Copeman, D. Knight, and H. Telfer. I always find it interesting reading the old names and kind of relating to them and maybe who their relatives are here today and that. But Okay, Rita, if you... So this is some old-time pictures. Okay, next.
No.
And the next one. There we are outside. And so, I'll take you, we just leave that one on. In 1883, we did curl on the bay as such, and on outdoor ice. But okay, next one, Mary. In 1898 was the first Collingwood hockey and skating arena, and that was built on Pine Street, across, well, actually right where Pine Villa Nursing Home is today, and that was formerly, before that, Sid Lewis's Body Shop and that. The thing is that the curlers were permitted to come in and curl only by advance notice. So you couldn't be out in the bay, up comes a snowstorm, and say, we're going to move inside. That was not permitted. You had to have it by permission and prior arrangements being made. So, anyways, I said I'd, let me just do this from the Century and Confederation. Collingwood has an inevitable record in the game We Broom in Stone. It is believed that the real old-timers played the game on the frozen lakes as early as 1881. In the early stages, 80s, the game moved in from the ponds and the lakes to the hockey rinks and that. So we weren't the only ones, but it was nice to be in, I'm sure, out of some of those cold days. I said I'd do some tidbits, and one tidbit is, as I say, that was Pine Villa Nursing Home on the location now, and formerly before it was Sid Lewis's Body Shop. Anyways, the story I have about that was my father, Mel McKean, was a reeve for a number of years, wanted to devote time to the quarry, and anyways, the thing was, he had the International Truck dealership, and he had two representatives come from Toronto, and he wanted Dad to take over the dealership. And Dad said, no, I really don't. So Mel takes off and leaves him with the two representatives, and Dad said, wait a minute, I'm going to take you over to Sid Lewis on Pine Street, which he did, and said, you got two boys, Dale and Dennis, why don't you take the International dealership? So that was the start of Lewis Motors, and look how big they're growing now. And so that was a little tidbit there about that location. In 1898, the first curling club building, next Mary, the first curling club building on Pine Street, east side, across from the skating and hockey arena, and we figured this was probably by the size, probably a 3-sheet rink. And it says, from the wild outdoors, curling went to the real old Pine Street rink. In 1898, the lads with the brooms and rocks took their seat of operation. And again, another tidbit was I noticed a bike here in the worker, and this was probably the time that the building was coming down, being demolished, and bicycles were a big thing of transportation around Collingwood. And the huge number of bikes that used to be at the shipyards, you know, people would bike to work and that. And remind me of the story of my grandfather Harrington, who just lived down the street here, and he was a carpenter, so he could put his big ladder on the bike, walk it to the job, and the one job he was working on was the old YMCA on 3rd Street, and they were erecting the roof. When it collapsed, it fell 40 feet down, and there was 3 injured. He was one, and it sheared his ear right off. He came that close to death. So anyways, but the bicycles, Stoutenburg Sports had 3 generations on our main street of bicycles, which is quite something to think that, and they're still, actually bikes are probably coming back more than ever for recreation biking and that. Maybe I should tell you one other tidbit was my other grandfather, Hurst, he stayed home from sailing the one year, and he was an engineer, so he stayed home so he could run the cement mixer when they were building the terminal grain elevators here. And anyways, something got plugged, so he climbed up, and he felt himself falling, and he pushed himself jumped into the empty bags of cement, and broke both his ankles. So, in those days, you know, life was not easy. So we now move on to our next building, and I do thank Eileen Chrysler for this picture. What happened, I was getting the companion to the Order of Collingwood, and at that, with my thank yous, I said, I really need help here. I'm looking for this picture of the old curling club on Pine Street. And Barb Wider came up to me and said, oh, Paul, I'm sure George has got one. We'll get it to you, you know, from the Mountain Pottery days. And anyway, she called back and said, no, we don't have a picture. I tried all over, couldn't get a picture. And sure enough, Eileen Chrysler came through with the picture and her old album. She said, I always like to take a picture of any building that was coming down, any historic building. And so we're glad to have that building. It was, as I say, built in 1925 with 4 sheets of ice. And I love this part here. This is from Reflections of Harold Dillon. And Ab Dillon, his dad, was the ice maker there and was paid $35 a month for looking after it. And Harold says, I well remember the curling rink, which was on the east side of Pine Street, just south of 2nd Street. My father, who was a bricklayer and plasterer, when the weather permitted, used to make the ice and look after the club room. The ice area had a dirt floor, and snow was shoveled in from side openings and watered down. A large hose, similar to a fire hose, was used. The rink was a favorite place for captains, mates, and others from the lake ships that were laid up over the winter. And how true, I mean, there would be at least half a dozen ships down our harbour then laid up in that. I recall the club room as a fascinating place. One could sit and watch the curlers through large windows, at least to the extent that the cigar smoke made visible. And dominoes was a favorite game. A large cylindrical stove threw out a lot of heat. My father found time to curl himself, and according to newspaper accounts of time, achieved some success. His team won a number of trophies, and I recall that one, the Leach Trophy, sat on top of our radio at home on many occasions. And again, Eileen Chrysler's memoirs of going to give Charlie a message that ladies were not allowed in the club room. So she had to knock on the door and have Charlie come out to give him the message that she had. So how we changed, how many times. Just like the boy and girl entrance in the schools, eh? Okay, next one. I put this one up because this is moving now to 250 Hume Street. And this was the original Great Northern Exhibition building. It was destroyed in 1884, and it was destroyed by fire on June 16th, 85. And it was immediately rebuilt. The second building was also destroyed by fire on October 31st, 1908. Now there's always old rumors around that Nottawasaga Township had their fall fair, and it was in Duntruan. And there was sort of a little bit of rivalry going on between Collingwood Fair and Nottawasaga, and maybe the fires were a little suspicious, who knows. But the second building actually suffered snow load damage as well, and then the fire. So, So moving away from that, what happened was the town council actually had a meeting and in 1908 and said, we're going to put up a building that is fireproof and and going to be used for agricultural purposes, and arena as well. And there was consideration to the military, but no, they didn't go after military money or grants or anything. Anyways, after the building was built, just a very few years later, of course the First World War's coming along, but they were approached by the military, and I think it was Lieutenant Colonel Curry that saw the building and recommended, and so they did lease part of the building out to the militia, and their training went on, and that's where we came down with some of our names that were etched on the back wall, which have now been moved forward in that. Okay, let me just get caught up here. In 1909, the Park Exhibition Building, as I say, built for agricultural uses and others, was built, and there was a 99-year lease signed at the time with the town, and then it remained agricultural use in that. But in December the 16th, 1948, the community arena opened and hockey moved to the new arena. And I sort of have two conflicting dates in researching this. I got December the 16th of an opening ceremony, but then when I talked to the arena manager, he told me that they have it registered as July the 15th, 1949. However, there's really no confirmed date when the curling club moved in, but they were certainly there for the 49-50 season with a membership of 300. In '83, the Collingwood Agriculture Society moved out to the Fairgrounds Road. The first curling lease registered on the property dates September the 1st, '76, for 25 years between the town and the curling club. And back when I was treasurer of the Agricultural Society, back in the 60s, 70s, we would rent the facilities to the curling club for $500 a year. And the thing about the Agriculture Society was we could get these grants through the Agriculture Society for the improvement to the building. So the town were not really kicking in very much money back in those days. It was all agricultural money coming through. And Fred Rentner, he was the secretary manager, and I was the treasurer. And we had to look after the building, and if there was a ball tournament, we'd have to go over and open the washrooms and make sure that everything was okay there. So it was quite as I say, very much an agricultural building then, with the curling club using it in the wintertime. In 1953, the curlers installed a concrete floor using wheelbarrows to make 6-sheet rink. The money was raised by selling a $100 debenture. Each year you clipped a coupon, and you ended up recovering your $100, but you had a common share of $1 left. And in 1963, this is when my father was president, and he had had enough of the liquor drinking part, which is part of curling. They would go down after a bonspiel, and they would have the ladies' room, which was downstairs, and it had glass doing glass and everything. But they would have drinks down there in the room there, and everybody get crowded in this little locker room, basically. And then through the week, there was 2 cement block. When you went in the front doors, there was a secretary's office to the right, and for fairs, that's where everybody registered and such and that. But there was 2 cement blocks in the furnace room behind that would come out. And that was very handy for making and creating a snake pit. And a little bit of drinking went on then, and the booze was passed through through this opening from the furnace room. So, anyways, my father as president said we've had enough, and so the bar upstairs was built. And it was built with agricultural money, because now it became the G&E Treasurer's Office. And when I was treasurer, I'd be up there, and the chairman of the committee, of heavy horse or whatever, would bring his judge up, and so I would ask him, what would you like to drink, and serve him a drink, whether it was rye or a beer or something, and the chairman they'd sit there and chat away about the event and how it went and everything, and I'd ask him how much and money, and you're paid so much for judging and so much for your travel time, and write him the check, and then he'd be off in that. So it's sort of served two purposes, as a little bar for the Agriculture Society, but also certainly for the curling club and that. I'll tell you, my father took a lot of criticism for doing that, though. There was, back in those days, you had your ladies in escort rooms, and to think you got a bar in a curling club, and so there were some people who were not happy having a bar in the lounge upstairs and that. So okay, and in '68, that's when I became president. And we had, then we implemented a compulsory $50 share because the dollar share and the numbers, you got to vote because it was the Collingwood Curling Club Limited company. And actually the ladies, they ran a separate division as the Ladies Club. But the Curling Club Limited was a company, and so we thought if we sold more shares that people then would have the right to vote and such and carry on. So in '68 also, when I was president, Blue Mountain Golf Club, the directors proposed to the Collingwood Curling Club the building of a new curling club at the golf course. And so anyways, we talked about that, and I came up with the idea that, look, let's put it back to the members at the annual shareholders meeting at the end of the season. And anyways, that's what happened, and it got turned down. And again, it split our club because people wanted to see a new building and such and that, and yet there was a number of us who wanted to stay with the present facilities. And it's today we reflect back, and it's a wonderful thing because our association with the town is great, and the costs and the volunteer work that we do. And I'd just like to throw one thing out. It was the lounge floors this year needed to be resurfaced, and Bill, I think, and Doug got a price from a contractor, $6,000 to do it. Well, with our volunteer help at our club, and we bought the material, $800 was the cost. So that's what goes on over there, is all the volunteer work and that. Yeah, also that year when I was president, I did bring in an architect, interior decorator, and a lighting expert, and we did make some improvements and changes because it had been sitting for a long period of time and that. So anyways, that was back in '68. In '76, a new steel roof and insulation was added to the building. The cost was covered by a Ontario grant of $60,000 plus $30,000 raised by the members. Also this year, the Collingwood Curling Club signed a 25-year lease, as I said before, with the town. But it's funny because just looking back in my old file, way back, Doug Brannon, who was the plant manager of Harding Carpet, there was a letter from Doug thanking me for my donation towards the $30,000 and that. In '91, the membership declined to about 125 members who held shares, but only 75 were active members. And in '93, there was additional structural upgrades were done to the masonry piles that support the steel roof trusses. This was orchestrated by the town. And I should go back to in '76, when we did the new steel roof, the thing was that people were saying, oh, the building's coming down, the brick are deteriorating and such and that. And, you know, it's not worth putting a new roof on it and what. Anyways, with the engineer study we had done, and they said those walls are 3 brick thick and 4 brick at the posts for the roof trusses. But they did say, you're lucky that the whole building just didn't go like that. The roof trusses were put across, but never cross-tied. And it stood all those years that way. And undoubtedly, I don't know for a fact, but I would think probably those roof trusses were probably even made at the shipyards. But as I say, they were never cross-tied, and so that took place then, that everything was cross-tied, and as I say, supports put even down the walls and that, but it's not coming down now anyways. In '95, due to deterioration of the under-flooring cooling pipes, the ice surface had to be reduced to 5 sheets. This year, the Curling Club became a corporation without shares to be known as the Curling Club of Collingwood. It was the mandate that the club be a non-profit volunteer club. In '99, probably due to the slow economic times in Collingwood, and what happened, all those industries that we had, and I can tell you I was in the town hall in 66, 67, when we were booming, getting all the industries moving in, and it just kept us hopping to get services in to accommodate these industries. But then, as I say, probably the old saying, once government money runs out, they move on, and that's what, of course, happened with Magnum and Stronach's building there. And the same, of course, the ethanol, but everybody's happy it's gone anyways. But in the early days, you know, we only lost one industry, and that was TRW, which is where Home Hardware was, and it went over to Midland actually. But as I say, it was a booming club back in the 60s, 70s, when these industries were just a hopping, and even into the 80s. And then all of a sudden, as I say, you have plants moving away and closing, and all of a sudden people are moving to find jobs and that. So our club did definitely decline in that. The thing was that we sort of went down to probably 75 to 80 members, and as I say, it was very much on the verge of closing. But then in 2000, new life, there was new interest happening from people, retirees moving into Collingwood, and membership started to grow. In 2000, I retired, and then Brent Knightree, our president, said, would I come on back on the board of directors and organize the afternoon curling and set up what we now call a jitney. And I had a committee of Bruce Smith and Ralph Martin, Steve Martin, and we come up with these forms that you come in and you sign in under what position you want to play, and then you draw. When they call out the skips, you come up and you draw, and you may end up with 2A, which means you're going to be on sheet 2, with A means you're throwing red rocks at the start. You throw first. So a very simple thing that's gone over really extremely well in our club. And back in the days when we sort of interviewed people or talked to them when they come in as new people coming, and they may say, oh yeah, I curled years ago in the city, but I want to get back into it, or what. Or some people were saying, no, never curled before and would like to learn the sport. So that's what's the thing, that the jitney was a great way, and it still is. We had to limit the number of people that were signing up in it, and we had to restrict them to only 2 days a week because it was so popular, and that, or else people would be there every day. And that, but it's been a wonderful program, and the Ontario Curling Association even asked me for a copy of our sheets that they could implement in some other clubs and get it going. So I brought you up to 2000. Then in 2001, along came a chap by the name of Mr. Bill Hanke, and Bill moved up here to the area after being an architect with the Bay Stores for a number of years. I don't know exactly how many, but for a number of years, and all of a sudden grabbed a hold of things at the club and oversaw a lot of the work. I'm going to let you tell about it, let him tell you about it, sort of thing. And he has, and a wonderful asset to our club, and all the work that's taken place in that. So Bill and Doug Smith and myself were the Building and Ice Committee, and we go over there and we say we're cheap labor because we work for a coffee and a cookie, you know. So anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Bill now, but I do want to say that Bill has been very involved in our community. He received the Order of Collingwood, not only as an architect overseeing things at the Curling Club, but also Campbell Hospice, overseeing the building of that, and volunteers at the hospital. So he's a very busy community man. So anyways, Bill, if you'll come up now.
Well, thanks, Paul. But my career here doesn't have any resemblance to what you were involved with, and all the good, fun stories that you have. We have fun, but I'm sure you had a lot of good times. Yes, in 2000, actually it was 2001, I should say, Paul has identified many dates, pretty accurately, I would say. And I'm going to try to do the same, but I'm sure I'm going to be off. So if somebody knows that something happened in 206 and I said it was 207, you can come and tell me, and I'll get it correct. Okay, so yes, people started to moving into Collingwood, retirees. That's kind of like this guy. And some had curled before, some hadn't. But the growth started, and it wasn't too long, and we were around 200 people. And that was probably 2001. At that time, being the building and equipment was pretty old, the mechanical plant needed a lot of repairs. A few people got together, put together a program, sent it to Trillium. Trillium came through with a grant, and along with help from the town, threw in $35,000 to upgrade, keep the plant running. Now we did this for approximately 3 or 4 years until 2004, when actually the town started a new program, new plant, an outdoor rink. I'll talk about that in a second. In 2002, in order for new member beginner curlers to get good instructions, a grant from the Ontario Curling Association was obtained to train some of the existing curlers, like Paul, to give good instructions to all of us new guys. And that went over well, helping create more permanent members. We had to put in a new furnace that year, club expense. 2003, members again, we're still on an increase, probably 25 to 50 a year, something of that nature. We had a few dollars in the bank by then, and so now, I guess this is where I really come in, started to do some minor renovations. So we improved the lounge, upgraded some parts of the kitchen. I would say in the kitchen, one of the things that might be of interest, we managed to get from the Lions Club, who was closed or closing, I can't remember exactly, a humongous stove, must have weighed about 1,000 pounds, and a pretty good dishwasher. And so we brought them in, put them in the kitchen, and they worked well for quite a few years. We did some work in the bar. Most of the work, as Paul said, was done by volunteers. That's how we managed to operate. We also bought new furniture, and it's the furniture that you see there now. So it's lasted well, and it's still in pretty good shape. We added some lockers that we got from the glass plant into our change rooms. Mind you, change rooms were pretty small, and for many years I had complaints that the women's change room was so small. There was only about 7 or 8 lockers in the room to start with, so it was small. Anyhow, again, in 2004, there was a very aggressive advertising campaign, which was funded somewhat by the Ontario Curling Association. And we probably, through that, radio interviews, people out in the streets, going to Provost clubs, we were getting close to nearly 350 members by this time. Also, in 2004, this is when the town installed the back of the building, a new mechanical refrigeration plant and an outdoor skating rink, which provided artificial ice for the outdoor rink and a new system for the curling club. The only thing that wasn't going to happen was a new floor. Now, Paul mentioned about the floor being 6 sheets, or 5 sheets, I think, because of deterioration and so on. Anyhow, so the club agreed to pay $175,000 over an 8-year term to the town, and the town put in a new floor and associated piping, which would then bring us back to the 6 sheets that we now have. It was a great thing. In 2005, 2006, this is where I could probably go wrong on the dates. Collingwood hosted the Winter Games. Now, there were activities at the curling club, many volunteers helping out. But one of the negative things happened was because the size of our lounge, which legally could only have 96 people, 6 sheets of ice, parents, and so on, there were a lot more people than 96. So when the kids came up after their game to have lunch and so on, the parents were asked to leave because there were too many people in the building. I think this maybe was a little embarrassing to the town. So the same year, a good curling friend who unfortunately has passed away, Dr. Bull Lawler, he came up with a little sketch and he brought it to the board of directors, and it showed a new entrance, a new stairway, an elevator. This all looked pretty good. So the board took it to the town, and with discussions with the town and so on, plans were put together, and
Next reading.
yeah, okay, just hold it there for a second, because I want to refer to something. The window to the right of the center doors. Just remember that. And I'll talk about that later. Sorry, go ahead.
Next.
So the addition was started, and it was. I guess we were finished in approximately 2007, and it was a great entrance. It's still the same entrance as it is today. We've juggled a few things around. We have an elevator, good stairwell to the second floor, and there was additional lounge space created at that time as well. Probably the same year, the town painted the interior of the ice surface, all the walls, and one of the big things that has improved the feeling of the space, they painted all the steel structure is white. I mean, if you're there, you'll see that, and that made a great difference to the feel of the space. Again, with volunteers, we did some work on the men's and women's washrooms. In 2007, I guess we must have had a few bucks in the bank, because we were able to contribute $100,000 towards the cost of the new addition, which was, of course, the elevator and stairs and so on. But we also extended the existing lounge out towards the ice surface by about 8 or 9 feet. Again, creating more lounge space, sitting space, and pretty good viewing area. In 2008, just after we had this all finished, we needed a whole bunch of furniture in the lounge. So again, the club bought some nice furniture, which is still there, functions very well. 2009, we were getting into the high-tech area. We installed a new sound system. We had to have a large screen TV, And in addition to that, we had 6 TVs that are positioned over each sheet of ice that monitor the ice, so you can see what's happening down on the ice. That year, we had, at our year-end event, we had a guest by the name of Glenn Howard and his curling team. And they were here, they curled with us, and they also participated at our banquet that night. It was a great event. I think in 2010, the building was given heritage designation. I'm not quite sure about that, but I think that's pretty close to being right. Okay. Again, our members, we just kept hounding at people to come and curl. People did, and we were getting up to close to 475 members. We, again, spent more money. That was what I was famous for, was spending money. I could spend money. And again, we actually renovated the lounge and second floor men and women's washrooms. Again, we did a lot of work in the kitchen. Most of it done by volunteers. In 2012, on November the 23rd, and I got that right, the president, Larry Young, past presidents Dave Earler, Brent Langtree, Bob Scott, Don Wilson, presented to the town the last payment of $21,825, which was for the new floor that we put in 2004. So that was done. It was a great achievement. I believe it was the same year the town also put in energy efficient lighting over the curling rink. That was nice. In 2013, the club, working along with the town recreation department, started developing plans for major expansion to the northeast and northwest. Also preparing, we also prepared a new long-term lease in which we would pay approximately $24,000 a year over a 20-year period for the expansion. I guess what you see in that picture is the expansion was from the 2 tall pillars to the left and to the right. Now, the additional lounge area, bar upgrades, new men's and women's washrooms and change rooms, handicap washrooms, storage area, and actually most important was a refrigerated beer storage room. We had a new heating system, cooling system. In the rink part, the walls were insulated, and there was a complete sprinkler system put in the building. Natural gas was also brought to the building at this time, which allowed us to finally temper the air in the curling rink. It was always cold, always got complaints. It's always cold. What would we do? Why can't we put heat in there? Well, no insulation in the walls. It wasn't much point in putting heat in. Anyhow, so we did all of that, and actually now the average temperature at about ice level is 40 degrees. We have people playing in shirt sleeves. Not many, but a few. In 2016, the original 1901 cornerstone, which was removed when this addition was put on, was lost. And a very dedicated, industrious member found it in a rubble pile, so we cleaned it up, and we now have reinstalled it in the lobby and sealed it up in 2016. And in 2017, 18, and 19, We, over those years and so on, the club has spent considerable amount of money in maintenance of the curling stones, which is a pretty big expense. Just to give you an idea, one curling stone is probably in the neighborhood of $900 to $1,000
Wow.
if you bought it new. So we try to look after them and manage that way. Lots of new technology and equipment has been provided, which helps our ice maker control a lot of things, humidity, heat, quality of water, all of those things, which results in, we have some of the best ice in the country. Okay, so that pretty much brings us up to date. Now, I would only say one other additional thing, and that is, I don't know how we organize this, but anybody wants to see the place, that Paul and I know, we'd be happy to take you through it. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Has Joanne arrived yet? Oh, there she is. Okay, I'm going to call upon our president of the club to give us an update where we stand this year and what's happening now. Thank you, Joanne.
Hi. Okay, so it's not that warm out there because I've come from curling and I've got 3 layers on.
But it's warm inside.
And Barb and I didn't find that the ice was the best curling ice tonight, just saying.
You lost.
We lost, yes. Anyway, I get to do the fun stuff. So they told you all the history, so I get to tell you what's happening today. The Curling Club for 2018-19 season with another robust registration. We start each season running a Learn to Curl that introduces curling to several new members. We have found that this is very helpful to the new members, so they're comfortable on the ice at the start of the season. We currently have 520 full-time members, 4 social members, and 21 junior curlers. And this goes up and down. Registration starts in September. We get on the ice in October, and we still have people registering mid-January. So it goes up and down. Some leave, some come back, they go away. But some people still feel that they can, start curling after Christmas and make it worth their while. We keep our ice maker busy as we run 32 draws a week, and on several weekends during the season we run bonspiels. We have 2 bonspiels we support during the year, the hospice and breaking down barriers. These 2 events help raise thousands of dollars for our community. We support 3 schools and introduce curling to over 300 children in grades 7 and 8 each year. We have 17 corporate teams that use the ice every Wednesday night, and that increases our curling to at least another, they have sort of 8-man teams, so it's another 100 members that come out. We also support Special Olympian program and wheelchair curling. Except for our ice technicians, our club is run totally by its members. We have a great team that donate numerous hours each week to make our club very, very successful. And as you can see by Paul and Bill, we have great members that donate hours and hours and years and years, and Doug Smith out in the audience as well. It's a fabulous club, and if you're not curlers out there and you want to come out to the curling club, we'd love to see you in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. How are we doing for time, Rita? We're We're doing all right? Okay, we'll carry on then. We've got a few pictures here, and how I was able to get these pictures is my sister Carol Warner, she's here tonight, and she found my parents' old scrapbook, and Sue Ann got me Eileen Chrysler's, her mother's, and anyways, my old book. So they are maybe a few family pictures, but there's stories to them, and anyways. Okay, this is actually carrying on from Bill's. This is our lounge. You see how nicely the floor is finished? But this is our current lounge now, how nice it does look, and the bar in the background. Next. And that shoots across the end where the bar is, right to the windows and that. So now we do have upstairs windows that you can see out again, and that's the area where people would line up for the bar. Next. And this is shooting the other way down to the kitchen, and then there's a boardroom to the left, and even the town. This facility is a wonderful facility. The fact that there's been celebrations of life there. There's a wedding planned in the springtime. Even the department heads had a meeting there with breakfast just before Christmas and that. So the town is utilizing the building as well. There was our Valentine's Day party and curling. Okay, next. And this is some shots on the ice now. You can see are nicely insulated, and what Bill was saying about all the rafters painted white. They were all sort of a prime color, rust sort of thing before, but everything's painted white, and the new lights and the walls. It's very bright and nice in the room now, or in the whole ice surface. Next. Okay, that brings me to a little history here, and this is 1913, when the Collingwood Curling Club won the Ontario Tanker. The players there was two teams, and I'll just read their last names off, but Vernon, Brown, Nettleton, and Fryer, and Dean. You can recognize some of those names going back. The other team was Rule, Westcott, Peterman, and Wines. And the thing was, in those days, you had two teams, and it was the total of your two teams. So, and the total points. So you couldn't quit through a game. You had to play the full game of 12 ends, and total score of your two teams. In 1920, the next one, please. Yeah, was another Ontario Tanker winner by Wines, Mayer, Prentice, and Westcott. Let's see. I don't have another list. That's four of the players anyways on the team. Also noted, our club won many Governor General trophies over a 10-year period. And next. Okay, this in 1907, prior to this foursome, the Sleeman Trophy winners, W.E. Vernon, Norman Rule, and Alan Watson and T. Brown won the Sleeman Trophy in 1907. But this is the 1913 team, and Peterman, Rule, Nettleton, and Brown. And the thing was, they each received a $100 gold watch. And this is 1913. I'm thinking today, wouldn't that be like winning a car? So, okay, next. So now we just move on to some pictures from Eileen's collection and our collection. But what was important over the years is there's Ed Smart on the left and John, his brother, on the right. Anyways, the point was that how we were supported over the years of the industry and people in this town. Okay, next. That was back in '55. Okay, there's Jack Fraser, and that's, you see over on my selection of brooms over there, using next to a house broom is what it is, and Norm God, Charlie Chrysler, and I think, is that, you know, but anyways, Jack Fraser had Crest Harbour on the main street, and there's a lot of merchants did curl back, and I think I might even have a picture of Bert Bryden coming up, but Russ Campbell, cycles. There was a lot of people on the main street that did have. Okay, next. Yeah, here's Bert Bryden. My father is the one on the left. I'm not sure who that is. George Green on the right. George, I'll tell you, drove the gray coach bus here from Collingwood. And the friendliest guy, and he took more kids back and forth to school and stuff, to Barrie or what, but George was just a wonderful person, a lot of fun. And next. Here we have Ted McIntosh presenting the McIntosh Trophy. Ted and George had the shoe store on the main street, and both curled. And that's Doc Blakely next, my dentist back then. And back in those days, you just hated to go because it was that old drill that just, oh. Anyways, my father, Al McLean, and I'm not sure who the other one is, but anyways, again, you know, as I say, being a merchant presenting a trophy next. And this was Vic Ellis, Stu's brother, Vic and Ray McKean behind, and Glenn Brock and my father there. Next. Okay, what this is, as I told you before, the club was kind of divided to the Collingwood Curling Club Limited Board of Directors, and then there was the ladies division, which ran their separate part of the club, and they had elected a president. And on the far left was a picture of Ray McKean. And what it was at the wind-up at the end of the year, we always presented the lady president with a bouquet of flowers. So there was Ray McKean presenting my mother a bouquet of flowers. The middle one is myself presenting the flowers to Edna Womble, and my father presenting it to Vi Bunnell back then. And that was, I was 68, 69, and Dad was 63, 64, so. Next. And here's Jack Day and Eileen on the right, and presenting the trophy there. Flo Brock holding the trophy. Looks like Muriel Brunner next to her. But Jack Day was the greatest guy. I liked the girls very much. And as Jack got that, he was struggling to get the rock down, he'd say to me, Paul, you throw the last rock. I'll throw the lead rocks and call the game, but you throw the last rocks. And that's, you know, the thing, you come to that point where it worked well and that, but he was just the nicest man, and again, presenting the day trophy. Okay, next. That was my father at the wind-up, presenting the trophy to Glenn Brock and to Joan and Eileen. That was Dad's sister, Joan Brock, the one that's the third from the right. And Glenn Brock grew up across the road, and that was the thing with me growing up with the Brocks. And okay, next. And my mother, Jean Hanna, and that, but it was always big trophies. I don't know what the thing is. And they always gave you a miniature trophy, so you always got a big collection. If you didn't get a miniature trophy, you got a silver platter. And of course, where do they go today, you know? All tarnished up. Next. And there's Eileen. And the far left is my cousin Margie Hurst, who ran the operating room here. And any of the doctors, hey Doc Paul, any of the doctors that were around Margie would tell you she does run the room. kept the doctors in line. Anyways, and even back, lots of fun. There's a Valentine, so this was a paint on the ice at a party on the ice there at Valentine's time, Blanchfield. Next. Okay, there was my first curling. Of course, you won't recognize me there. But anyways, that's when we won the Blanchfield 1958 with Roy Brock, Paul Brock, myself, and Mel Brock sitting down. Roy Brock owned the Collingwood Golf Course, and it was a 9-hole golf course. And as kids, and that we hung out at the golf course all summer. And then in the winter time, Roy was our ice maker. So we hung out at the curling club all winter. So whatever we could do to help Roy, we'd do that. And as I say, he took us in this men's Blanchfield, 3 8-end games. And of course, we disappointed a few men. We won all 3 and won the trophy. But Roy was a very talented guy. He was a scratch golfer, and the fact that he would take us kids down to the CNE, and I've never seen a guy as talented as that. He could throw that ball in the milk can every time. He'd throw it in, he'd give a pen there, and they wouldn't say anything at the time, but he'd throw the second one right in the milk can. He's, oh, sorry, sir, you're cut off. Only one per customer. So he'd go over to the dish and cut the nickel on that plate. Boom, right there. There's another pen there. And again, he'd do it the second time. Oh, no, sir, you only get one. They knew how talented this guy was. He could, in horseshoes, too, you always wanted Roy as your partner because he could throw a ringer every time. Very talented guy, and he probably would have had an NHL hockey career, but he went overseas during the Second World War. But just a great guy and great to us kids. And growing up with the Brocks on Minnesota Street, you know, our street was actually known as either the Brock Street or the Doctor Street, because there was about 5 families of Brocks on Minnesota Street. Okay, next. Tom and Marion Hutchison. Tom had an appraisal business in town here, and anyways, with Don and I, we won the St. Patrick's Bonspiel. Anyways, and that's it, Heslop presenting the trophy there. But the interesting story about the St. Paddy's Bonspiel was Charlie Wheeler, who was a good curler, and Charlie had the Mountain View Hotel. Anyways, the thing was Charlie would bring up every St. Paddy's Day the Bowmanville pipe band, and he'd bust them up. So Charlie then would bring them over to the curling club. And the boards went all the way around the club, even on ice 6. And here the pipes and drums would come in and parade around the ice a couple of times, and then upstairs for a drink. And then back to the Mountain View. But every year he would do that, and it was well received. And as they say, that okay, next. I had to bring this one forward because beside me was Laurie Weir, who we lost this year. That's Eric Pattison and Donnie. They both passed on too. They had calling a sand and gravel, and Donnie there for years. They had, I think, the biggest loader, the biggest bucket I've ever seen, but they used to keep our parking lot clear in the curling club for years. And boy, it didn't take very many sweeps to clean that parking lot. And Laurie, as I say, it was sad that we lost him this year. Next. And Don and I with Glenn and Mary Grant. Now Mary Grant and Tasker came from Stainer. They're sheep farmers in Stainer. They curled at our club for years. And when they opened the Stainer club, they still came to our club and the Stainer club, both. They curled in both clubs and that. Anyways, and I said to them, you know, some stormy nights between Collingwood and Stainer, and you know how bad it is down by Fernwood Farm there. Anyways, they said, oh, we never take that road. We always take Fairgrounds Road going back, and the wind just sweeps right across the road. It never drifts like it does on the 26th, so oh, I learned that. Anyways, the sign behind, the interesting thing about the curling club sign, we've got another new one now, but when I worked in the town hall, the clerk treasurer Herb Homuth, Herb also very talented in sign painting, so I gave him a little badge with the Collingwood Curling Club, and I said, can you make this into a nice, can you paint a nice big sign for us? So Herb did. He just took the colors off the pin and painted it, and we had that hanging at the back end for a number of years. And next. Okay, a couple pictures of my 8-enders. We do have fun. You know, this was a Hawaiian theme, and the one lined up anyways. And you know, you often wonder, you know, how can somebody score 8 this path here, they thought they could draw the button. Anyways, went to the back and we scored 8. Anyways, and then this other one, and I honestly don't know what happened there, or that red rock, maybe they come up short, but anyways, an 8-ender's like a hole-in-one in golf. I've had 3 8-enders now, but I haven't had a hole-in-one. I've had a hole-in-3, the first one in the pond and the next one in the cup. But I'm still waiting for that hole-in-one. Anyways, next. And that's another of Eileen's pictures with all the ladies there with their brooms and their stone back in the straw broom day. Next. And I had to get this picture in because that piano, it brings back lots of memories to me in the sense that I used to have to carry that piano with some other guys down to the ice surface for the exhibition. We would carry it down, get it tuned, Jim Canary would come in and tune it, and we'd have it for the fiddle contest for the exhibition. Then we'd carry the thing back upstairs for the curling club. And it sat there for years and years, and always somebody would jump on the piano. And in the good old days of the socials, the potluck dinners and the little curling game, and then dinner or something, or a social, but somebody would bring the violin, so we'd bring a guitar, and the great old socials were held at the curling club with that piano. We did eventually, as Bill said, we were really restricted for space, and the fire department figured that that's 2 persons that piano took up. So we ended up getting rid of the piano. Next. Anyways, there's what we did when Van Howard and Brett Lang came. We put rows of bleachers down ice 1, and it was very well attended. People came all over to listen to their little clinic and watch them curl. Then they joined in a little game in that too. Next. Here we are with Eileen with Ben Howard and Brett Lang. Afterwards, we had them upstairs. And next, oh, there I am with my girlfriend. She didn't do so well though in the Scotties. Jennifer and her gold medal. Anyways, very, very pleasant, very nice girl, and actually Brett and Jennifer, when we did have them at the curling club for a dance and party, we were down on the ice service, set a stage up, and really had a nice year-end party. That was the day they said they announced their engagement, so that was nice. Okay, next Mary Lou, I think that's it. That's it. I just might quickly